Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago family. We are here with Mr. Ken Ali, and Mr. Ali has brought some very amazing information again towards us in the public domain. We're seeing here a contractor, a former PNM ex-minister, is somehow associated with a 29 million contract without public tendering for extension. And Mr. Ali, I want to welcome you back to UNC USA. And I mean, you are putting on some interesting work there, and I would appreciate if you can elaborate on this recent information you brought to us in the public domain.
Yes, well, Gary, thank you. Good evening to you and to your other hosts. Good evening to all your viewers and listeners, wherever they are around the world. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very happy and privileged to be in your company and that of your colleagues. Yes, well, you're referring to my latest article, which is on social media. And before I go on, I also write for the Sunshine newspaper, where I reveal other irregularities pertaining to the PNM and so on. So your viewers and listeners can also access stories, not only by myself, but by Mr. Warner and others in the Sunshine. Now, on social media yesterday, I wrote an article about former well-known government minister of the PNM administration. Companies owned by people extremely close to him got contracts from the Housing Development Corporation. Now, this minister, people linked to him have gotten contracts from several state agencies. I've been writing about them, and The Guardian took up some of it too and also wrote about it. This specific matter I wrote about yesterday. It pertains to the Housing Development Corporation, and the real issue in this is that extensions were given to contracts without procurement process. You know, they ought to be under the procurement law, which was proclaimed in April 2023. Contracts, if they are to be, they could be given, first of all, for no longer than 3 years. And if they are to be extended, they are to be extended under certain provisions. There must be several conditions to ensure transparency and accountability. So that's that. But in addition to that, if it has to be extended beyond that, it cannot be for more than 2 years, and there's even stricter penalties. None of those were observed. So I have here a list of several companies which got contracts, and the initial contracts were given in 2017, March, April, September, May, February, and so on. Some were given in 2018, some were given in 2016, and they were extended after 3 years, right? And then they were extended a second time in some cases, and a third time in other cases. Now, the worth of all the contracts from 2017, now the final extension expires at the end of this year. Final extension expires at the end of December, and those extensions were given, most, if not all of them, were given on January 22nd, and some are expired, and the others expiring at the end of this year. Now, the total value of all of these contracts given is $29,109,523.50. All of these are companies owned by that are directly linked to this former minister. And I would tell you, SureServe Limited, Rivulet Investments Limited, Pical Services got several contracts, Lydon Enterprises, Costa Transport, and so on and so forth. So all of those contracts given, I just want to recap this before I move on. They were given initially 2017, and they were extended to as late as the end of this year. You will ask, what are these contracts for? They are for waste disposal service, grass cutting service, waste disposal, bulk waste disposal, drainage maintenance, grass cutting, and so on and so forth. Or waste disposal, bulk waste disposal, grass cutting services. So the total volume the total worth 29.1 million. And this, of course, is for Housing Development Corporation. And these are various places around the country. Let me just list some areas. Rushwood Street in San Fernando, Eden Gardens Housing Development, Couva North Housing Development, the Village Plaza in Edinburgh 500, Maloney Gardens Housing Estate, Oasis Gardens, Cypress Hills Exchange in Couva, Pleasantville Housing, Roystonia, Edinburgh, Exchange Housing, and so on and so forth. Union, Village Plaza, Cashew Gardens, Carlson Field, Lisa's Boulevards, and so on. So, of course, HDC Housing Estates is where these contracts are for. So, before I move on from that, let's recap this point. These are companies, several companies, whose ownership can be traced to close linkages to a former senior government minister of the PNM, 29.1 million. And the mischief in this is that there were up to 3 extensions. So while they were initially given in 2017, they were not offered on the market for public tendering, and they were just rolled over. They were rolled over for 3 times, and therefore others were denied the opportunity to bid, and therefore to bid for cheaper sums and make it more cost effective for taxpayers. So, and these, like I said, were politically linked. Now, this letter here, I think you may have shown it a little while ago, is a sample letter. Right, now there's a sample letter to a contractor. Now, this specific contractor is not one of those close to the minister, but is somebody from a major player in the PNM. And there's a sample letter. The relevance of this letter is that this is an indication of the letters that were given to all the contractors to indicate that they've enrolled over. Now, okay. Second paragraph says, first of all, it's issued by the managing director. This letter is March 21st, 2022. And a second paragraph says, please be advised that your contract has been extended with the same terms and conditions as stated in your contract from 1st January 2022 to 31st December 2024 at the cost of so on and so forth. All right. And so the terms and conditions of the initial contract from 22, 23, 24, those 3 years, are the same terms and conditions have been rolled over. Again, the procurement law indicates that there's strict measures that must be complied with if contracts are to be extended. And this procurement law, just to say as an aside, you remember the previous PNM government took forever to pass the procurement law, and when it did, it hollowed out the law and took out several of these stricter measures to ensure transparency and accountability. So just to say that again, that the PNM government, many people would remember, it took forever to bring that law to the parliament, and when it did, they took out several measures that would have ensured transparency, accountability, and probity, and so on. And even that, with that law, that was as weak as what the final passage, the final one that, final version that became law, they didn't comply with that. Even with that weaker version of the law, they didn't comply with. So that is the relevance of that document. And maybe I could just show here, your viewers wouldn't be able to see much of it, but just to indicate that this page here is a list of companies owned by the, owned by the.
Is that
close
what I'm showing us? Is that something like
Sorry?
that?
Yeah.
Is that what on screen? Yeah,
It's not too clear, Gary.
Yeah, well, maybe
You're
I'll try
upside
to
it
show
down.
it again.
Yeah.
But those are the
Yeah.
companies, several companies
Okay,
that a minister had close ties to. and the contract. So I hope that explains that part. And I just want to also add on that point that uh, these contractors or these companies close to this minister got contracts worth tens of millions of dollars, tens of millions. The
No, I have
Guardian
a
says
question
it's,
about the minister.
Mhm.
Now,
Go ahead.
was he an ex-minister while the PNM was in government, or was he a
No, he was
current?
a minister. He was
He
a
was a
minister.
minister. Okay, at the
Uh,
time of the government. Okay.
Yeah, he
Gary,
was a
can I
minister.
butt in a little bit?
Yes.
Gary, welcome, Ken. Thanks for joining me and
Yeah.
Gary on the team here. I have a little comment to make because, you know, in the 2010, 2015, reign of the People's Partnership, there was a company called Sport TT. That was the
Mm-hmm.
sports company. Now, the sports company from 2015 to 2024 to till up to last year, they were taken to court. That is the board of directors. And they lost the case. The sports company lost the case. So that is precedent, breaching a lot of, so-called breaching a lot of the rules and protocols involved in contracts. No, but that being established, that precedent of being established, all these boards and so on, where there's malfeasance and malpractices and where there's some sort of fraudulent activities, as you were saying here, I'm sure there will be more than one board in the HTC over those years, which renewed these contracts, breaking all the protocols and breaking all the watered down version of the Procurement Act now. So there is precedent to prosecute these board of directors, the
Yeah.
various directors over these years. So that's what I wanted to find out.
Yeah.
No
Well, yes.
fact.
It's left to the authorities or the police, really, the Anti-Corruption Investigation Bureau. Now, I don't know about that part if investigations are taking place. I know the board has
Okay.
had some great interest in it. But you'd also note, since you spoke about that, that the court has warned directors of the state sector that they can be held liable. Some recent months ago, in the recent months in the CPEP matter, I think it's Justice Frank C. Prasad warned boards that they can be held liable for decisions, and they got to be cautious about carrying out ministerial instructions without
In their
query.
personal capacity.
But
I'm sorry?
In their personal capacity, they could be held liable.
Yeah.
In
Yeah,
their-
in their personal capacity.
Yes, Gary, that was the case because I know my friend was in the sports company and he was liable and he has to pay a lot of money. So there is
Okay.
precedent already established. But what
Now,
I'm trying to find,
yeah, a key thing is to find out if the police are investigating. I cannot say. In fact, what I will say to you all this evening is that such irregularities have been found at several other companies. I am told that MDS, I am told at the LSA, the Land Settlement Agency, CPEP, of course, there's that matter with CPEP. I wrote earlier about the huge ghost gangs and so on at URP, big
Yes.
scandal, and at other agencies. If I could probably check in my notes and find out which are some of the other agencies. So all of that has been uncovered. MTS, LSA, and so on. No tenders. Of course, we spoke about DHDC. Because when I write these things, people say, all right, I know justification, they said this, all right, you write these things, what next? We know there were a lot of irregularities. Is the police investigating? Would we get justice on these things? I can't say. What I could say is that I have the evidence of wrongdoing. I don't know if the matter has gone to the police. I know there appear to be breaches of several laws here, and including the matter pertaining to procurement. And if, as watered down as the law is, there are areas that require compliance. And issuing tenders, issuing contracts, repeat contracts without tenders is a breach of stipulations in the procurement law. So people have been asking, I see people comment on my articles and I meet people and so on, and they say, well, all right, all of this is good, but what next? Are we going to get redress and so on? Because the Guardian is the one that put this sum of over $100 million. And when you tally it, and this is with respect to one minister alone, when you tally it, it really is quite a lot of money with respect to HDC and several other agencies. What astounds me is that I would write, and other people would write, the Guardian, as there's a journalist there called Joshua Simangal, who has done some good work. And but it doesn't create the frenzy in the society to say that there must be an investigation into this and bring people to justice and so on. What I have found also, and this is, I think, is an instructive point, that the leader of the opposition, Ms. Penelope Beckles-Robinson, has not spoken on this. I don't know if the media has asked her, but the media should ask her. What are your thoughts on this? Do you condone this? And so on. I could point out, and I said this guardedly, and I'll probably write about this sometime, there are companies that got state contracts that Ms. Beckles-Robinson may know about, and got. I know of two companies that got contracts that are worth, I think, just over $6 million. So she may or may not know about these companies, but I think the media should ask her about it, and probably the media should find out from the police and the other authorities whether in fact there are any investigations into these, because we could reveal this over and over, but what is the end result of it, you know? So
the media seems to be more interested in targeting our government and spreading mischief more than and addressing it. So this is why we need to make use of what we have here. And I always push that issue that we need to utilize, this channel and whatever social media we have to address these concerns of the media under pressure, because they seem to be still under the restraint of the PNM Cosa Nostra, far as we like.
And Gary, if I may add, it has to go a bit more that further than this.
We want to see. Remember, we want to see the redress. We want to see the retrievement of funds.
Exactly.
See, we don't want this 5 year to be like the last 5 year in 2015, 2010 to 2015. We want to see some execution of and punishment, in reference to what's taking place, but the retrievement of the money, the taxpayers' money, because they have caused people to suffer. And then the thing that's mind-boggling is that people were paid and not on the job.
And not only that, Gary, a lot of these boards over the past 10 years, and I have personal information on that because I have friends who were on boards, a lot of boards, both in the 2010 era and in the 2015 to 2024 era, that a lot of breaches in protocols, and especially as it pertains to expenditure, unaccounted expenditure, decisions were taken at the board level to fund, certain expenses which were not authorized.
Oh yes, carnival tickets, foreign travel,
those things,
parties,
and correct. And so that you will find that these are only the boards we know about. What about investigating the other boards? Remember, it's a 10-year period, and every 3 years boards change. In some cases, every 2 years boards change. So
we still in that Auditor General situation with the missing money. Is it over $3 million?
Yes, so you will find over the 10 years a lot of these boards. I will just to think is nearly all of these boards breach protocols as far as accounting procedures go, and breach the Procurement Act, even though it was watered down to a very minuscule level. even then they breached those rules. So you see, according to what Ken said, is Justice C. Prasad warned directors, but when did he warn directors? Did he only warn the directors, the incoming directors now in the boards, or is that applicable for all these 10 years? Because as I'm saying, there's precedent set with the sports company, and that the judgment is only delivered last year.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
No, I
so
want to. Yeah, and you're absolutely right.
yes,
Because what's the end result of all of this? Now, I want to
correct.
share another document here on a similar note, because I spoke of the minister. Let me talk, and I'm going to call a name this time. Let me tell you the name of the company, Trinidad and Tobago Landscaping Company Limited, which got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 contracts with the same Housing Development Corporation. And I also want to state that this company got contracts from other state agencies. But with respect to this matter here, again, there were extensions without procurement, with relevant procurement regulations. And the sum total of these 11 contracts at the HDC by Trinidad and Tobago Landscaping Limited for this period is 7,590,284.60. Right? $84.60. Trinidad and Tobago Landscaping Limited. This company is owned by one Natalie Gabriel, who is the wife of Andrew Gabriel, who is well known as a financier and a strategist of. Yeah, no. How he got the initial contract, I don't know, and I'm not making any aspersions. Maybe he was the lowest bidder, and so on and so forth. The issue that pertains to Trinidad and Tobago Landscaping Limited is relevant to what we were talking about previously with respect to the other companies, which is that the extensions did not go through the normal procurement regulation, the stipulations of the Procurement Act. I see we have an esteemed.
Yeah. I just want to welcome Dr. Cook Mayo. Good conversation to have Cook on board here too.
Right.
Good evening, everybody.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Mayo, Dr. Mayo, sir.
All right. Well, Cook, I just probably wonder. Oh, yeah, I'm just telling the team here about these contracts. One linked to former minister, several contracts, and this is just at HDC alone, and they were rolled over up to 3 times, some 2, some 3 times, $29.1 million, and they did not go through the normal what they ought to have done with respect to the stipulation of the procurement law. So so this was a breach here. All of these companies, I think I called some names, are linked to a minister. And this one I call the name Andrew Gabriel's wife, Natalie Gabriel. A company in her name, Trinidad and Tobago Landscaping Limited, got 11 contracts from HDC initially in 16, 18, 18, 16, 17. All right, so that period with 2016 and 2018 rolled over 3 times, and the total value was $7.3 million. The nature of work is grass cutting and so on. Now, you would remember, gentlemen, that this company was involved in a scandal some time ago when contracts were given for maintenance work at the Couva Hospital, the Couva Children's Hospital. The company did not get the contract, and 4 workers of UDCOT were suspended for that. Now, they later said, the authorities later said one didn't have anything to do with the other. But it's a fact. I mean, we could Google it and find out. The Guardian wrote about it then. So, so all I'm saying is Trinidad and Tobago Landscaping Company has been involved in the mix, has gotten contracts from several state agencies, and healthy contracts. This one is over $7 million. The issue with this is that they were rolled over, the contracts were rolled over without procurement process. And I just want to read what I read earlier with the managing director of the HDC writing to one of the contractors Right, so this would be a sample letter. I guess he would have written this, he or she would have written this to all the contractors. And it says in paragraph 2, please be advised that your contract has been extended with the same terms and conditions as stated in your contract from so-and-so date to so-and-so. In other words, they just simply roll it back. There was no procurement. Nobody else got a chance to bid, and so on. So when they initially was successful in a 3-year contract, but they eventually got a contract that went much, much beyond that. So I've sort of recapped a bit of that. I don't know if you have questions or observations and so on before we go on.
I did a preliminary checking on this a while back, last month, really. And I will tell you the formula I use, but I found that basically on all boards, appointed boards of directors for various companies and so on, state enterprises and what have you, between 2015 and 2024, pretty close to 1,500 board of directors, including chairman and vice chairman, change hands. And that is a quite tidy sum. And I'm sure, as I said before, the sports company, there's precedents set in the sports company to sue all of these directors. You know, so the legal aspect has to be taken into going forward. And I think the public is going to be very much pleased, you know, against displeased at this point in time, because they can see, yes, the UNC is really taking action against all these guys who are culpable, as the PNM did under the sports company. So as I said, there's precedent set, and why not bring these at least 1,500 people, let them pay back and let them be accountable for all the bad decisions taken with the public purse.
And you know, one thing as well, if I could just jump in quick, while the PNM ministers and wives and friends and families were raking in millions of dollars, remember the Rowley administration spent $500 billion. That's a mind-boggling figure. No government has ever spent that much amount of money. And our economy shrunk by 20% during that time. So the whole society was getting poorer while they were pocketing that money. It's really absolutely you know, infuriating to think about it, you know. And
the wealth divide, to use a Bernie Sanders term, the wealth divide got wider during their term. The rich got richer, the poor, and what our honorable leader and Prime Minister makes the point about the fake elite. And I think that was the explicit policy of Keith Rowley. And when he was asked to take it back, he doubled down instead. So that his whole thing was to do that. So you know, to get this kind of justice and to expose him and to take action is really important. And to add to what you're saying there, Kirk, you remember the wild goose chase with respect to, I think, EMBD, where they retained a British company and paid them huge sums to go after political foes. They achieved nothing with that. I think the figures in that should be revealed, how much taxpayers' money was spent on that wild goose chase. And while they were supposedly chasing corruption, according to the then Prime Minister, look what was happening under their nose, you know?
I mean, more than under their nose, in their cabinet, you know, the amount of recusals they had, they obviously saw, in a way that no other government has done previously or since, they saw the cabinet as a way to directly make money, directly into their pockets. So they had to recuse themselves 57 times, 37 times. They, you know, Monroe was getting rent paid to him, written out in his name. Faris Al-Rawi, Stuart Young's brother and father. I mean, it was just It was just a feeding frenzy while the country was suffering and going down, down, down.
And I
Terrible.
want to add to that, what astounds me a lot is generally the lack of interest by the media, the traditional
Yeah.
media.
That's the biggest joke.
There's a reporter named Joshua Simongal. I want to give him credit. He has done some good work in the Guardian, the Sunday Guardian. So I want to give him credit. But I don't see anything anywhere else. I don't see editorials. I don't see the blazing page one stories and so on. I don't see that energy. And you see, I don't want to go on from the
And
media.
there's an activist who was claiming to fight for poor people, and then they were, they were all there all the time, ponging all the time. Where are they? They lost their voice. Somebody cut their tongue. Did they get a Colombian
Transparency
necktie?
International. Yeah, we don't hear Transparency International. You see, all of those were agents of the state. They lived well off the PNM. As we said that, and I was looking at just this document, and just one. We talk about media. There's a guy who talks on the afternoon radio, on one of the stations, one of the talk shows, and pretends that he is balanced and fair and so on. He has a contract which also got extensions from the HDC. The only reason I didn't mention in my story is because he's not a politician. I was focusing on the politician. And his contract worth $407,000, $407,60226. So this is a man who one expects come on the radio and is balanced, but he was benefiting from the PNM. The other day I came on and this same program, is it? And I spoke about somebody who was getting benefit from the URP.
You don't want to share his name?
His name here, yeah, I could. And there's nothing to hide because it's public record.
Yeah.
His name is. His name is, okay, let me list the name of the company, Darwin Limited, all right, linked to Darian Marcel.
Well, yeah.
No, isn't that okay? That's a very familiar name.
Yeah. 95.5.
Yeah. Contract started 17th of November 2016. 1 extension, 2 extensions. All right. Nature of work, grass cutting services at La Goya Housing Estate, and so on. Value.
But I think he's always been rabidly PNM.
Right. But if you don't know, if I am driving or whatever, and I listen to the station and expect him to be fair and balanced, as I ought to expect, everybody has a little bias, but does he make a disclosure that, listen, I'm an agent of the state?
Exactly.
Yeah, I understand. Now, this is a bulky document, and I've not written about this one yet, but I'm seeing names here. My source pointed out some notable people to take note of. All kinds of names, people in all kinds of areas. For example, I'm not seeing it here, but in another document somebody gave me, the Joint Consultative Council, that's what they call it, the JCC.
Yeah.
A senior person from that got contracts under the PNM. And
HDC contracts?
Don't know if it's HDC, but a state agency.
But it has to do with construction.
Yes. Yeah, it has to do with construction. Now, what is the issue here? He's entitled to get contracts, but they said during the PNM time, he never criticized the PNM on anything. Now he has suddenly found his voice. Again, and this is a bundle here. I have all right. I was speaking about there's so many of this stuff. I was speaking about Penny Beckles a while ago, and I want to ask a question. Rehabilitation works on the Marvel Road, Saddle Road. Name of company, JNCO Enterprises, $2,411,065.80. All right, from 24th month, 6th of the 4th month, 2017. And I think there's another contract. And I'm asking the question, does Ms. Beckles know the owners of this company? And would she indicate? And if by some chance she's linked to this company, is that a reason why she has not spoken out on the matter with her colleague, the former minister? You see, all of these things call for disclosure. All right, here is the company
And
with respect
her,
to the
her father
JCC.
had received a CPEP contract years ago as well, if I
Yeah,
remember correctly. Her
right,
father was a recipient of contracts.
right. Now,
Yeah,
these,
I heard a rumor about that, but I didn't see I didn't get the chance to follow up on that, but I did hear that rumor also.
Yeah, no, that was
yeah,
reported in the newspapers.
yeah, that was reported. That was yeah. And she had said, well, he's entitled and so on. Now, I'm
Mhm.
asking here if she knows the owners of JNCO Enterprises and the contracts they would have gotten, and so on. Okay, here's another contract that JNCO got on the 4th of the 6th month, 2017, the same date as the other contract. JNCO Enterprises got rehabilitation works for the Diego Martin River Moncoko Road Bridge. Value of contract $3,452,420.81. Again, the question, she must indicate if she has no linkages, you could just indicate that. But she has been silent. The key point here, the key relevant point here is she's been silent on this matter about her colleagues. And she has used some of them, put them in the Senate and all of those things. And I think it calls for proper disclosure.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the two biggest recusers,
Yeah.
Stuart, yeah,
Yes.
on her team. Yeah.
That's right.
So,
Faris Al-Rawi is back as a senator after being
mhm.
rejected by the electorate.
Yeah,
The electorate rejected him. He's back
yeah.
as a senator.
And he has so much baggage, and they still made him PRO,
Yes.
my counterpart in the PNM.
Mhm. Mhm.
These
Yeah,
guys are blatantly bold-faced, shameless. I mean,
correct.
we got listen to me. In this first 5 years, we got to really take on these guys very strong.
Head to
You know,
head, head to head, head to
Yeah.
head. Take them
Yeah.
on, incriminate them, prosecute them, keep them busy, and not only them and all their affiliates and so on, all their best
I see.
friends. And
Welcome, Nadira. I see Nadira saying about DL Singh. Anand Ram Logan is going to take on DL Singh. We need all the people that was locked out of the country that suffered because of their decision. We need them to contact Mr. Anand
And,
Ram.
and, and remember, Penny Beckles, while our citizens were locked
yeah,
out,
yep,
she was in New York
yeah,
at
yes, Gary
the,
knows that.
representing the country at the United Nations, and she left to go home.
Run over
And
a seat.
left
You remember
everybody.
that truth? Penny Beckles
Yeah.
ran over a seat. And how I knew that became conscious to me is because I had a lady staying with her, and she called me and said, because she knew I was helping people, and she said, "You wouldn't believe Penny Beckles left me and ran home and left me here." And then I said, "But wait a minute, Penny Beckles here," and she did not address the concerns of the citizens, letting the government know, well, you're making a mistake. We have X amount people outside the country and all this kind of thing. Penny Beckles went home like a bullet for a seat and didn't say nothing for the last 10 years.
Yeah. There was no science behind that, no epidemiology, nothing there. Nothing.
None. Absolutely. I wrote an article also last week. You remember there were 33 people who were on a cruise in the other part of the world. And when they were shutting down the country and so on, they rushed to try to get home. They got as far as Barbados with Prime Minister Monty was
Welcome,
very
Mr.
kind to them.
Steer. We got a good panel here now. Go ahead.
Right.
Yeah,
I
good
made-
evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone.
Good night, good night.
Let me finish this point briefly. And Prime Minister Motley was kind to them, kept them there and so on. And of course, it depleted their money and all of that. I spoke to, when the judgment came last week, I know one or two of the people, one of whom is a friend of mine. He's a retiree from the energy sector and so on. He got very emotional and he remembered the torture and the hell they faced. Now, juxtaposing that, not only to the judgment, but the defiance and the arrogance of Stuart Young when he held the press conference last week. And he was trying to get wiggle room to say, well, the judge only said so, and the appeal court only said this and that. I think what the line he should have adopted is, listen, we're doing quite plain things at that time. We made an error, and I apologize to the nation. Now, people won't forgive you for anything, but they won't forgive you for arrogance.
He did not care that he had that he violated the Constitution, that he took away people's rights. That was of no importance to him at all, at all.
Yeah.
Totally
Yeah.
unapologetic.
He
And,
remains
and
unrepentant.
unrepentant. And you know, to tie it into to jump across to another topic, taking off from this, during that state of emergency, when everybody was locked down, when you couldn't leave your homes, when there was a curfew, crime did go down, but it went down by 142, which was 26%. This year, in 6 months of the UNC government, we have cut crime down, murders down by more than half. 148 persons have been saved from murder. And that is the year, I see the figure there, that's for the entire year. And for the entire year, we've saved 202 persons so far. It's really amazing. Never in our history have we had such a quick, rapid, drastic reduction so quickly in crime. This is incredible. And it's not due to the SOE only. Yes, the SOE, but I mean, they had a draconian SOE and they didn't get these types of results. This is incredible. It has to do with the dismantling of the gangs and the URP and CPEP. It has to do with appointing a commissioner of police that was #1 on the list and not taking it back from the president like they did with Gary Griffith, or not taking number 18 and putting them on top like they did with the previous commissioner. You know, these are the types of things. Even as the Prime Minister said, the American action in the Caribbean Sea and shutting down the boats from transporting drugs, guns, and human cargo. So all these things are extremely important. And, you know, we have to remember that PNM state of emergency that they called December 30th, which is my birthday, but they called it on December 30th. The next day, a state attorney, Randall Hector, was murdered, and that has not yet been solved.
Mhm.
And then 2 days later, Keith Rowley came, not to speak about that, but to say he's resigning, and then try this coup of putting Stuart Young as leader of the party and prime minister without an election. And that caused one whole set of bacchanal. And then at the end of that month, then they arrested the commissioner of police. And they put in a new acting commissioner. Her charges now are thrown out, but she wasn't allowed to go back on. So that was a coup in the police service. So they were up to all sorts of shenanigans, political shenanigans in that state of emergency.
We are also right. We are also there for that also, and that's going to be another thing that they are costing us money again. So the PNM, I mean, they have been costing us in so many ways. You know, with their management and handling the mismanagement of funds, they can't give accountability, and then their decision making is costing the taxpayers.
I just want to.
Yeah.
Let me just add something that a lot of these things were really deflections of the issues of the day. So that whatever decisions Rowley and Stuart Young and all, they were deflections from the issues. You know, every time that is runs true to form on their strategy or PNM strategy. Whenever there's an emergency in the country, they deflect and go somewhere.
Yeah. Ken, go ahead. Your mic is on.
No. It was also incompetence, not just deflections. It was rank incompetence. And I just want to pick up a little bit and add, because Cook referred to it, I just want to add a little more to it, and that is our border security. Now, in 2020, CARICOM employed a company, a Canadian-based security company, to do a study about gangsters, Venezuelan gangsters coming through the Caribbean and so on. And they identified the group Tren de Aragua was coming. That group was formed in a prison in Venezuela. And they were coming through Sucre, that state, northeastern state, coming through Trinidad. They were into drug trafficking. They were into gun shipment, human trafficking, women and girls, and so on. And so on. That was well known to Fitzgerald Hines, and they well known. Nothing was done. Nothing was done. The reports are there, public documents. Nothing was done for all this period of time. Now that the action has taken place off in the ocean and so on, that drug transshipment is being dealt with. You could dispute the American tactics or whatever if you want, but you can't dispute the fact that the PNM administration left the borders wide open. Now, in 2015, in the manifesto of the PNM, they spoke about setting up a protection border, a control unit. It was there on page 22 of the 2015 manifesto of the PNM. Last year, I think September last year, the joint, how do you call that committee in Parliament, the bipartisan committee on crime.
Joint Select Committee, yeah.
Right, led by the breadfruit man, Scotland, Keith Scotland,
Right.
came up with a same proposal 10 years after, saying let's set up and the PNM never did, because they found that the scanner didn't work. Very interestingly, they made no effort to Coast Guard boats and so on and all these things. And the U.S. State Department and other American agencies were reporting that Trinidad is a major transshipment point. 13% of the world's cocaine is said to be shipped from Venezuela. The others are shipped from Peru and from Colombia. And of that 13% of the globe cocaine, some are shipped from Trinidad. We don't know. A lot from the high-end areas in yachts from Chagaramas and those areas. And for whatever reason, the PNM kept the borders wide open, and the gangsters came in. They carried out
let me just bring in some of the political arguments that the PNM used to deflect and lie and everything. Then they keep saying, oh, well, the UNC canceled the OPVs. The point of that is that, first of all, that was a corrupt contract. The OPVs could not patrol our borders. They were too big. It's for the open seas, not going through the Bocas and patrolling our borders. What we did is that contract was not only was there corruption, they didn't deliver, and I believe it was $1 billion we got back. If 960 million, we got $1 billion because of their violation of the contract, and then we bought proper sized vessels to patrol our coastlines. It was, I think, about 7 of them. There were various sizes, small, medium, large, so we could do it. And then when the PNM were in government, they left them unmaintained, without gas, rotting in Staubles Bay, unused. And they have the gall to keep talking about OPV. I mean, every time we hear that, we have to be able to counter it properly.
Yeah, that's an age-old argument, a 10-year-old argument they have used. But they've kept our borders. And that same committee with Scotland found that there are 123 open borders in the country, 123 across this island. It's an unprotected island, unprotected islands where you have drug trafficking, huge drug transshipment, and guns. You know, we have high-powered guns coming in here. So all of those have, as you rightly said, have impacted the homicide rate, and it has gone down. And those are practical solutions. And I think the government is now getting in stride, because eventually they will see security in the borders and several other things will happen. But it shows how negligent and really incompetent the PNM administration was. So, but we've veered off quite a lot. I mean, we have Wade on the team. I mean, gentlemen, you always want to ask Wade about the budget?
No, but I'm listening attentively. Drugs is not my area of expertise.
No, of course. That's why I said budget.
No. I'm just joking. I mean,
I just want to mention, the last I spoke to the leadership and so forth, that budget date is not official.
Okay.
That's not a government or a party issued directive. Now, I don't know if things have changed in the last hour, but certainly up to an hour ago. There was no official date, despite the TV6 saying senior officials in the ministry said so. But no minister had said so. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, well,
I thought it was the 13th, but that's fine. Whenever it happens.
And
But
yeah.
let me just make a few comments about patrolling the borders. You know, technology has advanced so much within the last decade or so, and I can't understand why we can't use drones to protect our borders, supported, of course, by proper ammunition and sort of prevention. You know, but the use of drones, it's wide. It's a very large area they can scan at the least cost. At the least cost. So I don't understand. I think definitely that the last government left the borders totally unattended. A few weeks ago, I took my grandson and we took a drive down to Cedros. And I was surprised that the beach itself is quite attractive. But the people at the village, they said, don't go further down a particular area because it's very dangerous. And just imagine. So we have an enclave controlled by Venezuelans in Trinidad and Tobago.
More than
And
that, where I am right now, I'm in Pinal,
yeah.
quite by Mon Diablo, and yeah, the beach down there. Nobody can go there because it's
Uh,
everybody knows, every single person knows that it's controlled by Venezuelans and it's too dangerous. And then also, Vade, you're aware of up on the north coast.
SOE, just showing all you again. Every vessel park up, every single one. All you am fed up, the same thing over and over. PNM must go.
Yeah, yeah. On the north coast, the so all sorts of strange boats coming in all the time, coming up through there, and the police work with them. All the elites work with them. Yeah, so we have these all over. So Cedros, where you're talking about, Vade,
yeah.
right over here
Yeah.
in the north coast.
Yeah, and I just want to add a little bit to what both of you are saying. First, in Chagarama, the American authorities, the State Department and others, they have several agencies, the DEA, and then they have the Southcom based in Florida and so on. They have been indicating the drug transshipment through yachts, through Chagaramas and other places. Nothing has been done. The big busts that have taken place during the Rowley administration took place because of the aggressive work by the American authorities, the DEA and so on. They took an interest because a lot of the drugs were going to their country. And so, done there.
Some viewers may not even remember when there was cocaine in diplomatic pouches of the Trinidad and Tobago Foreign Service, and nothing was done about it during the Manning era too. The modus drug.
The grapefruit juice, orange juice can that ended up in the US. What happened? What about that? I mean, that has to be coincide.
Yeah. But certainly the fact that in diplomatic pouches of the government of Trinidad and Tobago there was cocaine in it. That is and they did nothing, and the Manning administration did nothing about it.
Yeah, the Rowley administration. Yeah,
well,
and
if I may ask a question, is that statute bar?
I don't know.
A crime of such a nature. The question is that statute bar? You know, and I think this is where, as Ken was saying, that you throw so many exposures out on the news and on the table, and nothing is being done. So I'm asking the question: can anything be done legally, retroactively, with regards to those crimes that we know about? And I think this is where the government has to put down their foot. And I agree with Gary that we can't just let this pass and say, okay, that's passed and let's close a blind eye to it. If in fact there is a route to have recourse, and you know all these things. I myself, you've been with me for many, many years with regards to the financial corruption and fraud, and nothing is being done. Nothing is being done, despite all the evidence. And personally, I think I've exposed myself significantly where people have advised me, wait, stop this work, otherwise they could kill you. The bankers could kill you. So I still have a duty, the point is that something has to be done. Something has to be done.
But
We
wait,
cannot
I just want
continue.
talking
Yeah,
about
go
the
ahead.
banks. You must be heartened by what the Prime Minister said recently about the banks and the fact that it's weighted in favor of what is my term, it's not her term, the big boys in society, the fake elites and so on. They look to redress that, and hopefully matters like bank charges, interest rates, and some of those things.
No,
But
I'm heartened. The question is, how do you go about it? How do you execute something like that? And I already advised the government even prior to the elections. It's very simple with regards to hoarding and so on. You just write it to your bank and say, close your position. That means your excess US dollars within 3 months. Close it. There's no need for debate on those things. That's the point I'm making. Very simple rules and laws can be enacted in Parliament, and we need to see that being done. Those are low-hanging fruits to protect consumers. To protect consumers, I am aghast at the kinds of practices by the banks against consumers, small
Yeah.
consumers. I'm aghast at it.
It's
No?
criminal. The banks in Trinidad and Tobago are criminal. There's no
Right.
doubt.
So now that we have the leadership almost announcing that something is going to be done, we have to be very, very scientific as to what needs to be done and by when. So the question of a strategic plan with regard to correcting all these wrongs must be developed very quickly by the government and executed to show the nation, look, we are taking steps to protect our ordinary consumers. We do not have, just imagine this day and age, we do not have a truth in lending legislation. Simple things like truth in lending.
Explain what is truth in lending.
All right, truth in lending. You would know, Ken, before we had something known as add-on rate.
Yeah, we have that here in the US where when you get in loans and real estate and stuff like that. Yeah.
exactly.
All of that is
we have-
all of that is fraudulent.
Yeah.
This add-on rate is fraudulent
It's
because
not the
what the
real
banks,
interest rate.
what the
Yeah.
do you know is fraudulent in many countries. In Canada, which I think they actually formulated this fraud, that they are not allowed. They are not allowed. But Scotiabank continued here, undeterred, until I brought it on many of my articles. And Richard Young came on television with another banker and said, "Look, we are no longer going to put in practice the add-on rate." But they said that openly, but in secret they're still doing it. But the add-on rate is fraud to the highest extent because it conveys to the normal borrower that is your interest rate on the loan, which is not so. Your effective interest rate is twice that amount.
Yeah, excuse me, gentlemen.
Okay.
I'm going to have to leave you right now.
Yeah, I have
my
to leave
phone
shortly
is
too.
dying, but it's been a pleasure, and I'll see you all soon.
Yeah.
Thank
I'll be
you.
here for another 15
I'll be back
minutes.
again soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, take care, Kurt.
Welcome, Dr. Ramro.
Hi guys.
Hi, Dr. Ramu.
Hi.
So if you look at the screen, you will see a little comment on the Truth in Lending Act.
Yes, truth in lending disclosure is mandatory document required. Okay, good. Yeah. Justice, hello, Doc. It's nice to see you. Justice,
Hi, Ken.
and I'm looking at some notes here. As of a few minutes ago, there was no confirmation about the budget date. Right? There was no confirmation about the budget date. Maybe there would be at some time, but as the PRO, Dr. Mego is the PRO of the ruling party, and he has indicated no confirmation. And just to also say, from what I'm reading here in my chats, there's no confirmation of that. Yes. Well, gentlemen, we've covered a lot of ground. We started on this contracts matter, and there's quite a whole lot more we could talk about on that. But as we've been saying,
The stage, the mic is yours, Mr. Ali. You know,
Yeah,
what you got
yeah.
to do, you want to come back
Yeah,
another
no,
day, we
no,
need to do that, you know, because I mean,
Yeah, no,
this
but the point
channel is
of-
at your disposal.
the point I'm making is, I mean, I have a lot I could say, a lot more I could say, but I
Go
think there
ahead.
is a great
Say what
sense
you
of
have to say. It's
concern.
all over to you.
No, just let me finish this point. There's a great sense of concern from the public about what's the next step, whether
Yes.
the police are investigating this and what's going to happen. Because if the disclosures are good, and there's much more could be said, as I said, much more I could write, but people want to see justice. It's taxpayers' money, and it is all of this is taking place under the nose of a nation in which more people have gotten poorer over the last 10 years. The poverty level, and I mean, you're an expert on economics. The last time we had this level of poverty was in the 1980s with the austerity crisis we had in this country.
Yes,
so we've had.
That's a very good point, Ken. And there are certain differences between the 80s and the 2020s, and I think it is necessary to understand the differences to determine why the economy has not tanked as yet as we experienced in the 1980s. So I could comment on that in terms of the differences, but
I would like to hear that. I would like to hear that.
All right, let me tell you. I used to manage the auto industry at the banks in Scotiabank at the time, and I just came out from a break in my MBA, and my manager asked me to go and look and study the auto industry and tell us what is happening. I did a study, and that time I wasn't computer literate, but I did it just in graph form, pen and pencil, and I determined by 1983, 84, because of the recession started in 83, that the sale of vehicles would decline from a high of 21,000 per annum, that's the previous year, to less than 5,000. So said, so done. My manager was so pleased with my analysis. He put me in front of the board of both Makal and Masi. And when I made that presentation, people laughed at it. But the following year, true to form, the decline in sales was less than 5,000. So just imagine, industry collapsed from 22 or $23,000 units per annum to less than 5,000, and we had a what you call a tremendous clean out in that industry, with Trinity Motors going under, the McEnany Olson's going under, and etc. Right? What has happened different to today is that the lending has become more relaxed. You no longer lend to only 3 years for a car. They're going up to 10 years for a car, right? Then because of that lending relaxation, what we are finding out is that the rubber band is being stretched. The loans to the three constituents of the economy, that is the household, businesses, and government, has relaxed significantly over and above that what we had experienced in 2018. So we are a debt-driven economy, but at some point in time, the rubber band is going to burst. It's already bursting. Today, I spoke to bankers concerning real estate, and they said they have too much real estate on their hand. They would not be lending to any new development for the next 1 year. What that means to say that the banks have a huge portfolio, non-performing portfolio in the mortgages as well as the auto loans. Same thing as in the United States. The difference between United States and here is that United States have data that they disclose to the public. Over here, it is all kept secret. So we are debt driven, and at some point in time, and in my belief, that the economy is going to crash further than 1980 because we do not have controls in place to ensure a soft landing. So the challenges for the government is to recognize these things and then engineer a soft landing for Trinidad and Tobago in such a manner that we start changing direction and truly diversify the economy. So hopefully the budget will cover these things because I've been speaking about this for the last 10 years. So Ken, I don't know if I answer your question, but
You
these
did,
are my analysis of it.
Yeah, maybe at another time, or maybe in another place, or maybe on this program, I would still want us to elaborate a bit more on it, because I have a great interest in what happened in the 80s and what's happening now in the 80s. Remember, after the oil boom of the 70s, the austerity crisis, the George Chambers administration collapsed in office from 81 to 86, and Robinson came, and as soon as Robinson came, he had to rush to the IMF, cut public officers' salaries and so on, and led to all of those things. And I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying a statement of fact. In 1990, there was the coup attempt and so
Correct.
on. So I'm not just trying to, and I'm saying maybe we will discuss it another time, some of the stark differences of what happened in the 80s and what's happening now.
Yeah, another thing to be aware of, and Sumant will sort of attest to the whether it's a good practice or not, is what has happened recently compared to the 1980s. Is government is able to borrow money and pump into the economy. When the UNC took over in 2010, this bank loans was 45 billion. When they ended their term 2015, it was 75. So they added a 30 billion to it. This government has added 100 and some billion dollars, moving from 75 to probably 160. So it's a little less than 100. So, Trinidad has been borrowing money, and because of that, the banks also have been very reckless in their lending. So we have borrowed this money to keep the economy alive. Now, we all know that borrowing will come to a head at some point. And whilst I don't agree with the debt to GDP ratio, is probably 70-80%, that's a figure that the lenders look at and they say, wait a minute, just too much. And then they stop lending. And at that point, we hit a brick wall. So we have to be very cognizant of these limitations as we go forward. The other point I want to make is that we are almost negative reserves, because when you borrow money, the banks lend you money to put it into reserves, and that is a big problem because they don't net off. But when you net off, we virtually zero reserves. We have virtually zero reserves, and the argument they make is that, but we have the reserve to spend now, and the loans will pay over a period of time. So cash flow wise, we should be okay, but that is not so. The fact remains, we have a negative reserve, and therefore we do not have any coverage for importation because you're borrowing to do it. And I don't see how the economists, I think Roger Hussein is perhaps the only economist that keeps singing this song over and over again, telling this country we do not have reserves because we already borrowed against it. So I think these are the things we have to look at conventional economics and look at it with regards to, is it logical or not logical? I've brought it on many occasions the debt to GDP ratio, which is a bogus ratio. But that's the ratio we determine. That's a major ratio, GDP and debt to GDP ratio, that we determine our policy decision, and therein lies the problem.
What kind
If
of
I may
deficit
add-
do you anticipate?
If I
And
may add to that, Jay, that is what is accounting to, like Standard and Poor's downgrading the TNT economy to negative BBB,
That is
and the international lending agencies use these ratings as a guideline as to the health of your economy. So what is going to happen because of this negative status? Borrowing on the international market becomes an issue. Now, you can only borrow at a high interest rates. So you begin to lose all these preferences which you all had before. And you end up with these negative ratings. Your country, the borrowings ends up with a higher debt repayment, higher interest rates payment, and so on. So we in, if not some trouble, in big trouble. We are in big trouble economically. And
right.
the
So,
monetary
you know,
policies have to change,
yeah, that is correct. So I'm very optimistic about Trinidad, because there are many good things going for it. But we have to recognize it, nurture it, and redirect our economy to an area that is sustainable. Sustainable in terms of jobs as well. We need sustainable jobs, and there are many, many opportunities that we've spoken on this chat before. Many opportunities. So let's give the budget a chance and see what it is. And I think it's our duty to quietly suggest different ways of doing things and see how things pan out, because I don't think any of us want the government to fail, and we certainly don't want this country to go into a crisis. A crisis. We don't want that to happen. Now, the opposition, the PNM, that is their objective, to plunge this economy into a crisis. So we have to be very mindful about these actions that are taking place. A lot of it could be untruth. A lot of it, there may be an element of truth, but they'll amplify it in such a way that they'll want to cause riot in the country. And we're already seeing that. We're already seeing the language.
To that platform, we know that they constructed this, especially in the last meeting leading up to the election. They went in an extensive borrowing frenzy.
Right. So we have to determine, Gary. We have to determine: did they cross the line? Did they cross the line?
That article that I was also trying to get him here for a long time to talk about that 1.4 billion. Ken, you want to give us a little touch on that? That was borrowed just before the
in March this year.
Yeah, I can't recall the details, but I know I've written about that. And Stuart Young was then the prime minister, denied it, but I had gotten the documents and I carried the documents. I showed the documents.
Maybe another time you could come back with it. But
I will go back and refresh my mind because I have the documents on that. And some of it were for the national economy. Others were for state agencies that borrow on their own merit and so on. So, but it was a huge sum, which also added to our debt profile. But there's a lot.
I just want to mention this, and Sumant and Gary spoke about it before, is that state enterprises should have no power to borrow, none.
Mm-hmm.
What should be set up within the Ministry of Finance is a very strong team that can evaluate all requests, invite bids on any financing, and be able to evaluate those things. Now, I evaluated for the UNC when they were in power before. I evaluated a few bids that came to them, and I'm very. It was very fortunate that they asked me to look at a financing that they were about to sign off on from a bank in Miami to pay off the CLICO depositors. And when I looked at it, it was very, very expensive financing that the ministers and the Ministry of Finance were going to go head on it because they were all gung ho on it to sign off. And when I don't know how it is they asked me, say, wait, come and sit on with the ministerial committee to look at the presentation by the investment bank from Miami. When I looked at it, I advised them, I said, don't even get involved in it, because the two questions I asked, I may have said this on the program before. They were saying borrow more than you need, and they will invest the surplus so that at the end of 10 years, it will grow to the level of the principal to pay off the principal. So I asked just two questions. I said, what are you going to invest it in? They said in government treasury, government notes, US government notes. I said, at what interest rate are you going to expect on it? They said 9% compounded per annum. I said, so do I need to go further?
No.
Someone, do I need to go further? The point I'm making is that the rates at that time were less than 4%, right?
Yes.
By what US treasuries. And how are these fellas promising 9%? And nobody else in the ministerial committee or the Ministry of Finance asked those fundamental questions, which brings me to a very important point, that the Ministry of Finance is open to these, what I would call them, wolves, that they have been stealing from the Treasury for years. And we do not have the technical expertise nor the courage to protect the Treasury. I've been saying this for many years, and I hope that the government really puts up, because all the hard work you do in terms of getting investments going and bringing in money and bringing in taxation, all of that, these fellas have their hand in the Treasury and they're taking it up. They're pilfering the Treasury at will. So I'm saying that we should centralize, just like any good multinational. It is at head office they determine who to borrow, what terms to borrow, and they do the evaluation at that stage. We would have been spared. We would have been spared all this foolishness with Petrotrin.
Yeah. Indeed, Petrotrin, and in the last few years, Imbert allowed HDC to borrow. But gentlemen, I've been on for a long time. I want to thank you for indulging me for this time. I've got to go now. I'm very happy for this opportunity. If you want, we could talk again. And Wade, I would like to hear you.
Let me know if you could come back. As soon as you could come back. As soon as you could come back, we want to do this.
Yeah, well, we could talk. Certainly, I could come back sometime after the budget. But Wade is the expert here. I like to have Wade on economic matters, of course. So, gentlemen, thank you for having me. And if you want again to link up with respect to any of my other writings, I will be writing again over the next few days and so on. We could do that. So thanks, Doc. Nice seeing you.
Same here. Nice to see you.
Yeah, we must get together sometime soon.
We will,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Okay, gentlemen.
But great to see you. Take care.
We have
Okay,
that
bye.
Diwali celebration coming up in Sandy Grande. I hope you guys can get together up there.
Yeah, we
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
16 and
certainly.
17.
Okay.
17 is Friday. I hope that you guys could. So I'll keep you guys posted.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Gary. The thing
Go ahead.
so far is that we know there are lots of people culpable. We know all of these stage agencies, the board of directors and so on. As I said, I did a preliminary, investigation into this last month, and I found, again, I'm saying it, pretty close to 1,500 board of directors are culpable. Every state agency. And there's precedent set in the Sports Company of Trinidad and Tobago, Sport TT. In 2010 to 2015, they were all prosecuted and found in that they are liable as individual directors of the sports company. So there's precedent established to go after all these board of directors. If you think of 10 years, you had board of directors and all these, the entire state apparatus. And every 3 years, you change directors, right?
I want to say
Every
what happened to and DL Singh, that for them to be liable in their capacity, especially
yeah, not only them, their friends and family, all those people, the appointees to the state boards,
Yeah,
and they would have
everybody
had
nonsense.
they,
But what?
they would have had changes every 3 years. So if you had 50 if you had 50 boards, at an average of 8 to 12 people, say 10 as an average, that is 500 board of directors every 3 years, and multiply it over a 10-year period, you'll get, it's simple maths, right? And you have to find all these people have to pay back the treasury for wasting the taxpayers' money. And nothing will please me, and I'm sure a lot of people, that if the UNC can go after these people and sling them up in court and have that going on all the time, let it be a headache for them. Because the PNM did the same thing. The same.
Particular dealing, a forensic team, and a person like Wade could be on there to help with the.
You see, and this is what, Gary, didn't you realize this is what I was saying from day one? If the day they won the election, we should have a core team for just about every single aspect of development in the country. A core team, everything, any development coming into the country must come through the team. Let the team analyze it from the financial point of view, the accounting point of view, the marketing point of view, the development point of view, that it's meeting the strategic goals of which the growth goals that they set out. If you don't do these things and you have helter-skelter and one ministry is trying to do these things, we all know how the competencies in the ministries go. The damn Ministry of Finance up to this day can't tell you what is the liabilities, foreign and local, of the country. There's no balance sheet or income statement or cash flow, nothing. And you have the same public servants doing this thing time and time and time again, and they still can't come up with it. So who are they trying to fool? What is the potential of foreign debt in US denomination or euros or whatever to the ratio to local debt? Do we know that? How long the Prime Minister have asked for a status of the country's financial situation? That means a balance sheet, income statement, cash flow. Well, that's the basic things on any sort of, financial accounting.
Yeah, it's a small home. The mothers in particular, they'll have a good idea what cash coming in, what cash going out, how much they owe the shop, how much they owe the hardware. That's so basic,
And
basic.
You assign that to children, lunches and transport and what have you for the kids. Simple, basic accounting principles. And yet, as a country, it's 5 months now and the Ministry of Finance cannot come up with those details.
I have a serious issue with it because what happens is that the smaller creditors are not being paid, and they can't do anything. They can't go up against the government. It's too intimidating, and they're being bullied into silence. And many small operations actually go out of business because governments are not paying them. And this is where hopefully I just reminded the Minister of Finance that please pay the cane farmers that are due over 15 years now, and just pay them the amount forget the compounded interest, but at least pay them. You don't want a lawyer from England jumping the line and he getting paid first before everybody else. And I think these are basics. I think it is highly unusual, or I don't want to say it's a bad pay practice that government has to catch up on, and to correct. They should correct, because they should not allow a payable to go beyond 6 months. If it is owed, pay them first, and that's where you have aging of your payables and clear out the debt. Because I wrote an article, PNM was there. I did describe them as bad pay, bad pay government. Because they're not.
Even the
But from day one, they started giving people trouble for their money. from day one.
No, and they're bullying people. But
Yeah.
if a minister's wife is owed money, they jump the queue and they get that payment immediate.
Correct.
If a lawyer, if a big firm, a large corporation has a receivable from government, they are paid first. They are
Yes.
paid first. And that kind of discrimination should stop, because they were not voted in for that purpose. They were voted in to serve the multitude of citizens in this country as equitably as possible. As equitably as possible.
Is
You
that the
know?
case, Wayne, for the VAT refunds and so on? Is that what you're talking about, more or less?
Well, VAT is part of it. VAT
The
is
VAT
part of it.
refunds is almost
No,
$1
but
billion,
no,
right?
no, but Suma, I heard it's about 7 billion. But
No,
apart
what,
from VAT,
$1 billion US. Yeah, 7 billion.
$1 billion US, yeah. Okay, that's correct. So, but apart from that, they're owing several contractors. They're owing hardware. They're owing for supplies all over the place. I mean, for stationery, so these suppliers depend on that to survive. They depend on that to survive, and if they don't get it, ultimately they go bankrupt, belly up. And that is happening in Trinidad with government not making payment, not making payment. And they don't realize that, first of all, they ought not to engage and take credit if they don't have the means to pay. If you don't have the means to pay, it means to say you're bankrupt. So if you're bankrupt, you should not be engaging in commerce. I mean, that is company law. So I think we have to look at it a little more seriously. It doesn't matter if it causes pain in the beginning, but once you clear out debt, that goes into the system and actually multiplies and continues. Now, it means to say they have to cut off expenditure from other areas. And one of the main areas I could see, I keep saying, do we really need a president and 300-400 million going to that office for what? If Prime Minister Modi is coming here, we could dress up somebody on sari and say, this is our president, and go and shake hands and something. What I'm saying, these are fixed expenditures that we could avoid. Do we need 30 some consulates around the globe? We don't. We don't. So there are many areas that we have to look at very carefully and say, what is it essential? What is it we might want or mightn't want?
My
And what
take
is
here
it?
on the consulate on the foreign mission is how are we putting it into use to generate revenue for the country?
Well, that is why, Gary, you hit the nail on the head. So every 6 months, each one of them should come to Parliament and account for their mission, account for what they have done, how much they have
see,
spent. They
Yeah,
have to account for it.
you're supposed to account for it, because every one of these missions supposed to have what's called a trade attaché, a tourism attaché, and all these
Yes.
sort of things. And you account and show that your same revenue and expenditure, how much additional business you have gained for TNT for the last 6 months or for the last year. So in other words, you do this scorecard of your deliverables, right?
Yeah, I
And
run into a situation where the consulates was needed. In fact, I needed more in certain countries because during the pandemic. And the thing about it is, the bigger problem is that those that were there were not very helpful. They were shutting the doors, shutting the phone. They had no answers to assisting our people. They were completely dumbfounded. And in fact, they created more problems for our citizens than assisting them. They made no effort, absolutely no effort. And I am personal witness to that. And I have a lot of people. In fact, I spoke to some people recently because I was trying to get them to come back on board, being that Alan got the clear from the courts, to proceed, with the citizens' rights of being locked out in the country. So we need I said it before, and I know our government is dealing with a lot, but I want to see things get to a stage where there's a clear understanding of how these foreign missions should function, and there should be resources put in place, and there should be it should be accessible in case of emergency. And the current hours of operation is totally unacceptable. You can't close up by 3 o'clock, and people can't get their passport, or they have an emergency and they have no way to call at these missions. You know, it's either the phone reroute to Trinidad, but we need a 20 in this day and age. We need a 24-hour access for emergency purposes. In case our citizens have an emergency in some foreign country, they can contact our foreign missions, or get the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Trinidad. You know, so something like that. But these foreign missions have to be revamped and restructured. You know, not this kind of wine and jam thing and we done there. That's it.
But that is where, I mean, there are certain countries we need a permanent presence, but many countries we don't. And the alternative to that is to have a representative in the country, that in the event of emergency, you know, we don't have to carry a full-fledged offices with a lot of paraphernalia, a huge staff, etc.
Nothing.
Because and with today's age with communication so efficient, you know, you don't need these things again, and we have to examine. And I think, Sumanta, I think with your expertise, where are we on the scale from 0 to 10, 10 being the best, use of technology to manage the affairs of this country? Where are we from 0 to 10? I suspect it's more like 1 and 2. So it means to say that if we are not using technology as efficiently as we could, means to say that we are spending a lot more money, and we are far less efficient than we ought to be.
I don't
So
think we even at that stage, Wade, because since 20,
the social media, how productive are we utilizing social media, really?
since 2013, they're trying to pass e-commerce legislation, and that has not been done as yet. Since 2013.
Yeah, so this country is on standstill. This is where, you know, the government could make a dent on all of these things in terms of prioritizing where they put the effort and where they put the dollar. Where they put the scarce dollar. Where do we put the scarce dollar?
This is the digitalization of the economy. Digitization part, that is the government services, but the digitalization part is the part that you tend, or your commerce, your trading in, you know, the various purchases and sales and so on. I see digitalization aspect of it, and it's very, very, I mean, minuscule. I've been barely touching one.
Sumanta, I see India is issuing rupee bond for the international market.
Rupee bond, yes, is, I think it's today. Today it started.
Amazing.
Along with South Africa and so on, we're starting it with them.
Yeah, time to change. Because, you know, international trade, the banks reap a harvest with regards to changing of currency, you know, currency exchanges.
Big time. Even though the percentage is small, but the amount of
the volume
of those transactions.
The volume, all of that going to cut off. All of that going to be stopped. But let's see. I think we are in an area of tremendous changes. I don't know if you recall that India just invested $24 billion in Burkina Faso. You see, they are now
to get the oil reserves, guaranteed supply of oil.
So you know, there's some good examples that is happening in Africa, and India is taking the lead in many ways. Here it is that we have $300+ million offered by the government. Where are our projects to access that? Where have we reached? Where have we reached? You know, in terms of presenting a proposal to via the embassy here, government, the Indian embassy. Where have we reached? And we should be knocking on their doors at 5 o'clock in the morning and say, this is what we need the money for.
Well, we see we got the LIMS part going recently, last week, from the
Fan-
Adidibali Nagar,
fantastic.
the
Fantastic.
limbs.
But
Yeah,
that
the
was not
limbs.
part of the 300 million. That's almost like
No,
a donation, you know. So,
I think they're expecting to get the 2,000 computers for the schools shortly.
right.
Yeah,
Okay.
those are deliverables. I can see, I've read what's happening, but the $300 million, if we should identify the projects, the 15 major projects like the one on biotechnology on the East-West corridor, I think that was one of the growth poles the
Okay.
government has set up. One thing that bugs me is why not open the school in the DB campus and make it into a technology and AI hub, and we could get full support from the Indian government on that because they're very gung-ho on that education, you know.
Exactly. So that could become open to international students.
Obviously, and we become the center of AI and technology in the Caribbean, and we get some foreign international students, so we get earn some income out of these renters and living here in TNT and so on.
But Sumant,
That's
you
what
saw the school. You saw the school, international school in Dominica.
Oh,
And
yeah,
let me tell you.
Big
Let me tell you.
St. Kitts as well. St. Kitts as well. My
St.
niece
Kitts as
is
well.
working there
No,
right now.
but I'm referring to the one in Dominica.
Yes.
They were far advanced to Dominica. Eh? And if they could establish that, I can't see why DB can't have a school to that standard.
The campus. But St. Kitts is moving on big time. My niece is there right now. She is in there. And it's the same concept. They
Yes.
tie the whole development and this, you know, St. Kitts has one hotel, you know that. It's a Marriott
Yeah.
right next to the runway at the airport.
Well,
That's it.
yes, that is
No,
true.
Now
That
they
is true.
now today they have a med school, U.S. offshore medical school. A lot
Yes.
of services being offered, accounting, you know, legal services, accounting services, and all these consultancies and so on in St. Kitts. Are we
Yes.
here
All
pussyfooting
this
around?
problem that we have in here with for foreign students in the US, so the Trinidad could benefit from that at this point.
Big time.
Yeah.
Even from the Caribbean, even in
What
the
I
Caribbean.
want to see out of this budget is the infrastructural funding to deal with the immediate flooding issues. We have farmers that have some very controllable flooding issues that we can deal with, you know, very quickly, and they are very anxious to produce, to go into production. They have the
And that
land. There's irrigation problem, you know, with a stream or something back, you know, backing up into there and causing them some
Mhm.
distress.
Mhm.
You know, so I want to see some before we get
and
into the long things that we have talked here together with Dr. Ramrup in the larger scale of the dam and you know and all these larger retention and gates and all this kind of thing. There is some very small stream areas that just need a backhoe to
That's
clear,
correct.
and
That's correct.
and it's too much of a song and dance to get it done.
correct.
And I can't
This is
see a simple thing like that we can't get it done. So our borough corporations need extra equipment. We need to increase equipment and efficiency there in how we perform. You know, people have to wait too long and have to call too many times, and it's so exhausting. You know, to get the simplest things done. So these are some things that I want to see being done, where local government, the borough corporation, the local government ministry gets these resources, the adequate funding to run with these issues so that we could get
Yeah.
these infrastructure going where the farmers can start to produce. We need to cut that food
Yeah.
importation.
Yeah.
and
Gary,
that
could I suggest something? Could I
Go ahead.
suggest something? Now we can determine what types of machinery and how many machinery we need to solve that particular problem. Make a list, and government of India might be able to actually provide us with those machinery under the umbrella
Hear
of the
what I'm
300 million.
That's right.
Sorry?
That is exactly where I was coming to.
Since I'm getting the fullest collaboration out of the Sandy Grande Regional Corporation, I would like to get you in conversation advising them. I already had Ken, our engineer, Dr. Ramok, gave us that's working with them there, and they appreciate it. So I want to get the team, up
Yeah.
there, especially this event that we have, and it would be a good idea if you guys can attend, because I would like you guys to personally meet with them, and then
Yes,
we could
yes.
take it from there. Because they have some serious issues there, and the Sangre Grande constituency has some very resourceful land area that we can use. It's very resourceful.
Mhm,
There
mhm.
are some issues that is very solvable, within a short period of time that we could deal with. So
You see,
I would like to get either do a
yeah,
Zoom.
I'll be
Get,
delighted. I'll be delighted, Gary. Because
Gary,
one of the
I
missing. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
the way as you were saying, why can't we approach somebody? I don't know, Gary, if you can, with respect to setting up a team, exactly as we discussed. We're going after the government of India donation, or which the monies that they're willing to invest in TNT, and
listen, the
let
team
have
is here. The heads of government know that we're here. But what I'm saying to you, I am breaking this down to a regional area. We
but
dealing.
regionally, this is the same thing. Exactly what I'm saying now. The government in India willing to help in agriculture, so they will take it from the back end right down to the front end.
We're going straight
Mhm.
up the alley now. This is what I'm talking about here now. All right, we're going straight up the alley. I want you guys that you in Trinidad now. Vade is there. Dr. Ramrup is there. I already had a discussion with one of the MPs yesterday. And we're moving forward with a plan of action.
Yeah,
So
what we can do, Gary. I'd be delighted to meet with them. Let's do a needs assessment for the area,
right,
with the objective of creating sustainable jobs. Right. So we have
right. So
we
we
have
work
those.
with the Grande
Yeah.
constituency. I want you guys to meet with the borough corporation now. All right,
Yes. I'll be delighted.
and then you could advise them and how we
Yes.
can go forward. And maybe you could advise. We could work out how we could source some additional funding based on from international level. Dr. Ramop knows how to do that part of it.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
source the, and you yourself, Wade, might know how to for them to assist them in getting international funding for the flooding situation that they're dealing with, because they're dealing
Yeah,
with a very.
doctor. Yeah, that area, Dr. Amrup, he's probably very
Yeah, but what I
conversant
say,
in.
both of
But
you,
yeah,
know the banking business, and Dr. Amno
yes.
those the books and these things, we could probably get it. So I want to take the next step in meeting with the borough corporation.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll definitely be there for either the 16th or the 17th, one day at least.
Yeah, so they have it is a 2-day function, 16 and 17.
Yeah, wonderful. You'll send location. I think you already did the invitation,
Yeah,
so
yeah. And plus,
I'll
I will.
definitely be there.
I will send you. I mean, you on the chat group with the chairman and the deputy chairman and the team up there. So you have their direct contact, and I would make
Yes, yes,
a list that you will be there. You let me know which day you're going to go, but I want that physical contact now. So I
yes.
think we wait enough, and I want to move in. And let's get things up and running. I think enough time is wasted.
You know, with regards to accessing the India funds, um, I'm not too sure what is the formal route, whether through the Ministry of Agriculture or whether direct to the Prime Minister. I'm not too sure. But if you could find out what's the route to accessing that fund, that will be a big help rather than us, bouncing our head on the wall.
Now, it has to go to the High Commission, from what I understand. Everything has to flow to the High Commission because the High Commission represents the government of India here. So the
Yeah, I
contact
agree.
has to be made.
Right. Don't be
But how do
surprised
you
if you meet somebody in Sangre Grande. Don't be surprised.
but how do you reach the High Commission? That's what I'm saying.
This is right. So we have to go through some agency here, maybe the ministry, Dr. Swarat Singh's ministry in the industry and commerce, trade, or whatever it is. Planning,
Right. So
the planning
so
ministry as a
exactly.
start. So
Yeah.
I guess they can advise or direct us where to approach
Well,
or how to approach us.
Right. Well, they speak on behalf of the government, but
Yeah.
I do things a little bit differently. Sometimes I go direct to the source.
Okay,
Um,
well,
and
we can, if you
then
can
the government.
identify a list of things, Gary, you could take it and send it to the top, and then they could advise us what to do.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying no.
Okay, okay,
You will yeah, most likely you'll be interacting with some people at that function. So let's see what
okay.
happens.
All right, great. Okay, I'll take my leave. It was nice chatting.
Good to see you, David. Take care.
Yeah, take care.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Okay. See you.
All right.
Take care.
So
Take
Dr.
care.
Ramos, do you have anything to add at this point here?
No, I mean, I missed some of what Ken was saying and Dr. Mego, but I kind of understand the gist of what is happening. And hopefully, you see, when we go Friday, I mean, everybody will be so busy with that Diwali function. You might be able to have a reasonable conversation, if you know what I mean. We might just be at least meeting with them, saying hello and whatever.
Physical
Because,
introduction, but we're going to, at
yeah.
least they get to see you, face to
Right.
face.
So at least they see us, and then hopefully we could probably meet with them at a more convenient session to discuss the
Right,
other
right.
issues.
Even
So
doing Zoom session.
see how it goes.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to make all that connection. And I mean, you've seen the activity on the chat, so you've seen the conversation and the new people
Yeah.
that's coming on board.
Yeah.
Karen Ral is there, and we have a few other people that's coming on board there with us. Very skilled gentlemen in its technical skills, and apparently he worked under you.
Yeah, I realize that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. Suman, do you want to add anything at this point?
No, that's all for me. I'm okay.
All right, Mr. Siram, thank you very much for taking the time to join us. I think he froze or something like that there. So, all right, good night, everybody. Thank you for
Okay,
joining.
guys.
We'll
Take
meet
care.
soon.
See you.
I'll talk to you.
Right.
ॐ जय जगदीश हरे स्वामी जय जगदीश हरे भक्त जनों के संकट
Don't forget the Diwali celebration and Standing Ground for the 16th and the 17th of October. I hope that you can attend, invite your friends, let them know what's taking place, and good night.